Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. We're late, we're live, we're here eventually. Thank you all on YouTube who are here live for your patience. My name's Tommo and welcome to my post-race CHINWAG for the 2024 Chinese Grand Prix Sprint. Okay, we're talking about sprint. We're also talking about main qualifying. The sprint happened at like 3:30 in the morning UK time. So I just watched that on the phone. To be honest, I couldn't get back to sleep after the sprint. So qualifying, I kind of this doesn't happen often. I was drifting in and out of sleep the entire time. So I kind of had to watch it back afterwards because, I couldn't get back to sleep after the sprint. But here we are to wag our chins about the entirety. Okay, I did ask you on a YouTube poll, do you want me to talk about qualifying, as in main qualifying, in this CHINWAG, okay, in this post-sprint CHINWAG rather than tomorrow's post-race CHINWAG? And about 2/3 of you said yes. So we're going to talk about qualifying as well. But let's start with the sprint. The sprint shenanigans, shall we? First of all, I suppose, rating for the sprint. Now, if you are here live on YouTube, I have asked, using the 4 options available to me via YouTube polls, your rating out of 10 for the sprint. I'll put it out early so I don't have to type and waste time doing that, because it's not very pleasant for your viewing experience, and that's what I'm here for first and foremost. Okay, 12% of you gave the sprint race a 9 or above out of 10. 47% of you gave it a 7 or above. 37% gave you a 5 or above, and only 4% of you gave it a 3 or above. So all in all, I think generally the consensus is you kind of enjoyed it, and all in all, so did I. Gave it a 6. Okay, the sprints go, it was pretty good. There was some scrapping around the back. Obviously Oscar got the move done on Max. Lewis led, kept the lead off the start, which was hugely important. We saw the power of the damage that the dirty air was doing to everyone following Lewis. Essentially, it's a combination of factors, right? I think the Ferrari was decent on the tyres. We saw Leclerc attacking Russell towards the end, which I think demonstrated, along with Lewis kind of driving away at the front, that the Ferrari definitely did have a better hold of the tyre management than Mercedes did anyway. It's hard to glean too much from Lewis because, again, he had clean air. Clean air is king out front. But he didn't have to worry about graining like the cars behind him. Even if Oscar had got the move done on Max earlier, I still think he would have finished second behind Lewis. And that qualifying result was big on Friday night, was very, very Ariana Grande, wasn't it? So I gave it a 6 out of 10. No one in the chat's absolutely destroying me for it. So looks like we move. Right, qualifying results, sprint qualifying results first, before we kind of dive into the details of the sprint race. And again, Lewis put it P1 kind of out of nowhere. He was super surprised. I tell you what, it's been, when you look at the drivers, the experienced established drivers who have changed teams this season. So you look at your Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz. It's been tricky. It's been tricky for them. I wouldn't say those three, right, with the experience that they have between them, have had a particularly good start of it. And of course, Australia was very tough for Lewis. However, it was tough for Charles as well, and just tough for Ferrari in general. For Lewis to pull out a pole, yes, Lando messed up his lap. He made a mistake, and you can argue maybe Piastri had pace in hand as well, but ultimately they didn't deliver, right? Lewis did deliver 18 thousandths ahead of Max. Small gap, but enough of a gap to get it done, okay? To get P1 done over Max. Oscar, again, they reverse position in the race. Then Charles Leclerc P4. Disappointing from Charles. Just hasn't been at the races at all this weekend, has he, Charlie boy? It just hasn't worked for him so far. He's just not finding a happy place in that Ferrari in the same way that Lewis was able to in sprint qualifying. Then Lando down in P6, again, messed up his lap, big lock up into the link connection. My OBS is telling me excellent connection. So you can tell me to get better internet. And I've literally, I get the top internet I can, as far as I'm aware, in my area. So yeah, lag it is, I'm afraid. Yuki P8, another SQ3 for Yuki. Another, that's maximum Q3s for Yuki. It's a kind of spoiler alert for qualifying. And we still, honestly, I don't know what to do about the lagging, because it's usually when it's laggy on your end, it's also laggy on my end, and I can see it. But if you weren't spamming lag in the in the chat, I'd have no idea. Albon P9, Lance Stroll P10. Lance, you know what? Low-key, Lance has had a pretty decent start to the season in Aston Martin that, hard to say. I'm not sure really where that car is. Ollie Behrman P12, Carlos Sainz P13, Gabriel Bortoletto once again out-qualifies Nico Hülkenberg in sprint qualifying as Isaac Hadjar P15. A shame on his he made a mistake, didn't he, on his push lap in SQ2. However, he was able to give Yuki a tow, which ended up paying dividends, because Yuki only got into SQ3 marginally. I can't remember the exact number, but it was pretty close on yes, this is sprint qualifying SQ, not sprint results. And then Doing out-qualified Gasly. Small margins between the two of them, but he did in SQ1. And then Ocon out, Hulkenberg and Liam Lawson. Not a good... the first comparable laps for Liam and Max in SQ1, Lawson was about he was exactly 4/10 off of Max. And then obviously when they pushed again, where, retarmacked at Shanghai, there's more performance on the track because there's more rubber down, and Liam did not convert his lap and therefore P last. Not a good start to his weekend in China, and as we know, it has continued to not be fantastic. Anyway, so they're the sprint qualifying results, Halita. Apologies for the confusion. Sprint qualifying results. Quali head-to-heads. Right. So, as I said last time, if you were here for the first stream, I'm going to do my best to keep track of the meaningful qualifying deltas between teammates throughout this season, including sprint qualifyings, because the format's the same, it's just a bit shorter. So I feel like they should be included. And taking away outliers, trying to get the best representative times from the furthest session both drivers reached. However, like I said with Doohan in Australia, where he got yellow flags, which ruined his lap, that's obviously not a representative lap. So trying to take away those outliers and trying to, analyse the head-to-heads. And this is wrong. Hang on. It's so annoying, because the reason I was late is because I was trying to get these graphics. Just they were very fiddly and tricky, and I underestimated how long they were going to take to update. This what you just saw there was incorrect. Have I changed anything? I haven't changed it. No, my mic settings are exactly the same, Alita. They are exactly the same, and they should all be. They should all be, same microphone. I don't know. OBS sometimes does my Sweden. That's what I'll say. It does my absolute Sweden. Right, I spent all this time updating the Quali head-to-heads, and I didn't even export it, which is what happened last time. I just failed. Yeah. So I've done the graphic. I just didn't export it because I am a fool. I am an idiot. There we go. Bosh. Right. Okay, we've done that now. So I've updated that, which means if I go to here we go. The correct numbers. Here are the correct numbers. Okay, my explanation counts, but this is after 2 of 30 qualifying sessions. We've not yet looked at normal qualifying. This is Australia qualifying and sprint qualifying for China. Okay, can we get a hairline check? Absolutely not, Dana. Okay, no one wants to see that. So Verstappen, Lawson, average gap, first 2 quali sessions, almost a second. Tough. Lawson's made mistakes and Max has not, basically. Then it's Russell Antonelli, 0.562. Then it's Albon Sainz, 0.556. Behrman Ocon, 382. Only one session to look at, which was sprint qualifying. Behrman qualified Ocon by 0.382 of a second in sprint qualifying. And he couldn't qualify in Australia, so I couldn't look at that at all. Might seem harsh because it was Behrman's fault, but there's no perfect way of doing it. Piastri over Norris by 0.19 of a second because his gap to Lando was quite small in Australia behind Lando, but then he was fairly significantly ahead in sprint qualifying was Oscar because, again, Lando made his mistake. Bortoletto over Hulkenberg by a tenth. Doohan over Gasly by less than half a tenth. Alonso over Stroll by 22 thousandths, close. Tsunoda over Hadjar by 11 thousandths, close. And then closest of all, Leclerc over Hamilton by 0.005 of a second. In fact, if I look at my spreadsheet, I do have a spreadsheet in Google Sheets to keep track of all this. Because if I try and do the mental maths, that's not gonna play out well. So because Leclerc outqualified Lewis by 0.218 in Australia, but then in sprint qualifying, Hamilton outqualified Leclerc by 0.208. So add them both together, divided by 2, and it's a fractional advantage to Leclerc, but basically the same thing. Okay, that's how I'm keeping this up to date. Oh, I wonder if it's because I've got two. I had 2 tabs open with YouTube, but no, I shouldn't change anything. Still stuttering? Oh, God, this is so annoying. You know, it's annoying because nothing on my end, again, everything on my end, unless it's because I had 2 tabs open of YouTube, one live streaming and one, I don't know, man. Annoying, but here we are. And so that's a qualifying head-to-head after, again, Australia qualifying and sprint qualifying in China. So it's fine for some of you, not for everyone. Okay, I don't know. I don't want to refresh because I don't want the stream to end. Right, cool. So, sprint results then. The race itself. Okay, Lewis, of course, won the race. Good vibes, fantastic. For Lewis to get himself in that position and convert, and look, this race was won and lost off the line, wasn't it? And the fact he got away just well enough to just get across, hold off Max, get that inside line, because, you know, you see it at Japan as well. Suzuka, pole position starts on the outside. Shanghai, pole position starts on the outside. You can argue it's maybe not fair in some ways, but also like it's entertaining, you know? When the driver on pole position starts on the inside, it's very, very hard to see a move getting done. Although we've seen Max get moves done around the outside at Suzuka into those first couple of turns, so we'll see. And then again, Piastri got the move on Verstappen. I was surprised that, I don't know, I think at this early point of the season, Max is consistently up there. I think he can see that Oscar, like in some ways, right? But the long and the short of it, I think Max could have defended harder against Oscar. He could have covered the inside, but playing the long game, I don't think it's a bad thing for Max if Oscar picks up points, because then if Oscar's picking up points, then he's close to Lando, and that can cause problems for McLaren, and problems for McLaren work for Max in the long term, I think. So, you know what? I don't think it was all that unwise for Max to just kind of not wave Oscar past, but he certainly didn't put up as much of a fight as he has done in the past defensively. So I wouldn't go as far to say he let him by, not by any stretch, but he didn't really defend it, because I think, look, Max knows that McLaren do seem to have a car advantage right now, and Ferrari's up there and Mercedes have been consistent, which is weird because that's the one thing they haven't been for this Grand Effect era. But if you can just keep being up there and keep picking up big points like he has been, then they're cooking, right? They're cooking. Russell P4, Mr. Consistent. Charles Leclerc couldn't quite get him at the enquiry. Yuki Antonelli. Yuki did a fantastic job, didn't he? He's just been so good, Yuki. Honestly, this season, the racing, the balls that race, the number of points they have in the constructors right now does not represent where they have been, because they have been, I think, clearly the fifth quickest car behind the top four. Because Williams will quit last weekend, but they've not quite looked at it, whereas Racing Bulls have been rapid both weekends. So, happy days. Then Norris P8. I think in terms of the sprint race itself, Lando had a bit of a stinker, didn't he? He had a bit of a stinker. He lost positions on lap 1, got wide, and was stuck behind Stroll for a very, very long time. Obviously, the tyre graining. Once you're in that DRS train, Stroll was close enough to Antonelli to be able to get DRS for a lot of it, which meant that Lando was kind of all at sea. That mistake in sprint qualifying for Lando was very much punished in the sprint race, plus he cocked up as well. So, not good from either point of view. And then Fernando Alonso rounds out the top 10. Obviously, only the top 8 get points. So, at least Lando did get a point on the board. And then Albon, Gasly, Hadjar, Lawson, obviously, yes, terrible sprint qualifying for Lawson. He did an all right job in the race. Some of his overtakes were a bit close. The one on Doohan when there was contact, and Bortoletto very, very close to kind of contact. All in all, I think Liam did a okay recovery job. Again, given the DRS trains, given the graining, I think it was all right. Look, he's got to take the positives, because there haven't been many at all this weekend, have there? And then Behrman, Ocon, Science had to pull in early doors. He was struggling with the car big time. Had a pit stop, and the only reason he wasn't last is because Doohan punted. It was a subtle contact, but enough to spin out Gabriel Bortoletto, and then Hulkenberg kind of got caught up behind them, which saw Jack get a penalty as well. So, yeah, it was the overtake on Doohan was more of a mugging. Yes, Sugar Ray. I saw that on the old coverage. Yeah, it was a bit elbows, but I think it was just about all right. Fine margins, a little bit of rub in his racing, fine margins. Doohan wasn't so fortunate. He did actually spin out Gabriel. And that was your sprint, essentially. That was the long and the short of the sprint, which leaves the driver standings as follows after 1.5 of 24 rounds, should I say. Right now, Lando Norris, 2 points ahead of Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, 26-24. George Russell, 20 points. Antonelli, 14. Albon, 10. Piastri, 9. See big points in the sprint for him. Hamilton 9 as well. Actually, the biggest points in the sprint for him. Stroll 8, Leclerc 8, Hulkenberg 6, Sonoda 3. Everybody else nil points for now. Anyway, time will tell. These positions are gonna. It's nice. Once the season gets settled, these positions are a lot less volatile, as in they're like always changing. So the graphic updates are fairly minimal. But right now, one race just completely changes everything. Crimea River. First world problems for me there. And then the team standings, McLaren just 1 point ahead of Mercedes, 35-34. Red Bull 24. Interesting. So I updated the names, but I didn't update the colours. I was in a rush. Okay, the names are correct. The colours are wrong. Ferrari on 17, Williams on 10, Aston Martin on 8, Sauber on 6, Racing Bulls on 3, and then Alpine and Haas both on 0. I'll give myself more time to get the graphics updated next time. Okay. You're here for the Lommos, all right? You're here for the Lom moments. Exactly that, Arrow Productions. The Lom moments vastly outweigh the WOM moments, okay? Game's the game. Game's the game. So, qualifying then. The most recent session, Oscar Piastri took pole position, P1. His final sector on his... Because he had 2 yellow... sector 1, sector 2 were yellow on his final lap. So he'd lost time relative to his quickest lap prior, but then he had a blinder of a purple final sector. Said he absolutely nailed the final hairpin and improved his lap even further. He was already leading and he just improved it even further, did Oscar. So he banked 2 pole position laps. Very good. Hairpin of his life. That was it, Antonio. Hairpin of his life for Oscar Piastri. So well done, Oscar. Very, very good. George Russell, P2. He was super happy afterwards as well. Felt like, he maximised and everything came together at the right time. Lando P3, again, not quite. He made a mistake on his final push lap, pulled in. I said about this car, this McLaren, right? It's got the potential to be very quick, but both drivers, I've got no reason to not believe them, have said it can bite. It's quick, but it can bite. And look, that's the way a top quick car should be. You should be pushing the limits to an extent where, look, you weigh up performance and drivability. You're always going to go for performance. And if it's a handful for Oscar and Lando, it just makes it all the more interesting for us. So Lando P3, Max Verstappen P4, he was fairly satisfied that was kind of where the car is. And then Lewis and Charles P5 and 6. Lewis said they made some car changes. Obviously, the good thing with sprint races now is that they released the cars from Parc Fermé after the sprint race ahead of qualifying, which makes it less of a spoiler because you can change, you can save a car setup, but you can also hurt it. Now, the wind was doing very different things in qualifying versus the sprint race, so that might have caught out the Ferraris as well. But yeah, Lewis will be disappointed to have gone from P1 in sprint qualifying to P5 in normal qualifying. Isaac Hadjar. Tell you what, man. Isaac Hadjar. I was expecting him to come in, be quick, be a bit crashy, be a bit inconsistent, but be quick. He's been quick, and as much as obviously, he had the howler of a not even race start in Australia. Given the conditions and all that, you've got to give some benefit of the doubt. And P7 for Isaac. Superb lap from him. Actually, I looked at his F1 Tempo. F1tempo.com is a really good website for looking at the qualifying data, when the laps were set, like what times the lap was set, and how many push laps. And in this qualifying session, throughout Q1, Q2, Q3, Isaac and Yuki are like tit for tat. They are so close. Like every push lap, they are within, a tenth or two of each other, like consistently. And you can rate the consistency of 2 races low L. You can't rate it over the course of the whole season. Relative to 2 races, you can still value the consistency within the context of 2 races. Obviously compared to. Thank you, Polish. I don't feel all that healthy, but there you go. But yeah, Isaac, fantastic job. Antonelli, bit disappointed he was. That'll come. He's kept it out of the wall. He's going to develop, and I think George is a force. George is a quick guy. All right, so it's going to take time for Antonelli to really get settled. More lag. Like again, I don't get it. Excellent connection on YouTube. 10,100 kilobytes per second OBS. No indication there's any lag, and yet there's lag. I don't know. Frustrating. Sorry, everyone. I really don't know what's going on with this. If it was doing something on my end, then I'd be like, okay, but I there's nothing on my end. Usually there is something on my end, but there's nothing on my end this time. So I'm just gonna have to carry on. And then Ocon P11 almost got into Q3. So well done, Haas. They seem to have pulled themselves out of whatever hole they were in Australia. Oh yeah, and Albon Q3 again, by the way. Go on the Alex. Nico P12. The Aston Martins. Carlos P15. Still not. Carlos is struggling with a soft compound on. With the full push laps, Carlos is definitely struggling. More so than the harder compound for the long race stints, which, it's more important to be quick in a race. Like, I think it's just going to take a bit more time for Carlos to just get up to date with the nuances of that Williams, that what it needs to get the most out of it, that obviously Alex is very adept to, versus Carlos, who's just come in. So that shouldn't be a surprise, right? That shouldn't be some crazy news. And then Gasly, Bearman, Doohan, in terms of after 3 of 30 qualifying sessions over the course of the season, including sprint qualifyings, because there's 6 sprint races with a qualifying session of their own, 24 normal ones. Verstappen, Lawson, the gap has come down to 0.880 of a second, so it's come down, but not by much. Then Russell, Antonelli, 0.501. Albon, Sainz, 452. Piastri, ahead of Norris, still 0.177. Bearman, Ocon, 0.120. Hadjar, quicker than Tsunoda now in terms of over the 3. It's half a tenth, so it's very, very basically from. I mean, honestly, from Piastri, Norris down, it's ridiculously equal, essentially. The only teammates where there seems to be a quite consistent gap in qualifying is Verstappen, Lawson, Russell, Antonelli, and Albon, Sainz. Everyone else is kind of tit for tat. Because, again, Lando's got the pace, he's just made some mistakes, right? Bearman, Ocon, it went Ollie's way for sprint, it went Esteban's way for normal qualifying. Hadjar, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Leclerc. Hamilton is there now ahead of Leclerc on average by 0.028, which again is nothing. Alonso over Stroll by 0.14. And then Hulkenberg and Gasly Doohan split by just 7 thousandths of a second, averaging out over 3 qualifying sessions, which is, again, it's just nothing. It's just essentially nothing, which is, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because you got to look what Albon, Sainz, look, this won't last. Carlos will get qualifying dubs, many a dub over Alex. Of course he will. It's just going to take a bit more time for him to settle into what this car needs on a soft tyre. A bit longer than he would have hoped, but, also he missed out on a full race distance in Australia. That won't have helped him. And so that will get closer. And then Russell, Antonelli, again, I think George is George is excellent over a lap. Arguably the best driver over a lap. You got to say, it's always been a real strong side for him. The race pace is where he struggled relative to Lewis more often than not. And Antonelli's an 18-year-old just come in. Yes, he's got an incredible upside. That will take time. I think it'll be closer by the end of the year, but I still expect Russell to pretty consistently be ahead of Antonelli in qualifying. And then it's Verstappen, Lawson, which is kind of the only driver head-to-head that there is no there is no future scenario you see that being anywhere close. And that's not just about Liam. That's been a thing since 2019, So why is Mr. Saturday gone now, do you reckon, Lowell? Because, George is still exceptional over a lap. Absolutely exceptional over a lap. So, but yeah, so those are the qualifying head-to-heads. That, again, you just have to trust me on the data that I'm looking at laps that are representative in the furthest session, and we're going to do our best to keep track of this over the course of the season. And in my videos, whenever I'm referencing back to quality head-to-heads, I'm going to trust my own figures on this, right? Live by the sword, die by the sword. Okay, that's the way we're doing it. Okay, we're going full send. Right. Okay. Couple of super chats. Thank you very much for. You don't have to super chat, but I really do. And thank you, Mr. Hoppy, for 2 as well. Very kind of you, Mr. Hoppy. Thank you very much. Lawson finishing behind Hadjar is a damning indictment of Red Bull's selection process. If he doesn't improve soon, they need to look in the mirror. And another one from Mr. Hoppy. The gap between Verstappen and Lawson is dire. Oh, if this keeps up consistently, Red Bull needs to reconsider. I understand the car is a factor, but even Perez didn't have such a gap. Look, I think we have to talk about the Liam Lawson, Max Verstappen, Red Bull situation, don't we? Because it is it was always going to take time, for sure. It started about as badly as it possibly could have. He was P18 in Australia, very difficult conditions. He put it in the wall. He was on slicks, granted, and he lost FP3 through no fault of his own. So I think those factors, probably in hindsight, did he have the worst right? I put him as clanger in Australia. There's a number of candidates. I'm almost inclined to think actually maybe like Ollie, even though Ollie finished the race, he had such a bad free practice. He shunted it twice, which is pretty unforgivable. And then he comes into this weekend, Liam, dry weekend around China. And, it's a track he's never done, but that's the same for a lot of drivers on the grid. And yeah, apart from those first comparable SQ1 laps where he was 4/10 off, which, by Max Verstappen teammate standard is like acceptable, 4/10, which is crazy, right? But it is. But then couldn't back it up the second lap, and it's really it's a mad situation, isn't it? I just don't get it, because you look at, okay, so let's wind the clocks back. So 2018, Max and Ricciardo. Ricciardo leaves. He feels like Max is starting to, get priority treatment, or starting to, take over that team. And, for whatever reason, Daniel decides, I'm going to leave. But, in 2018, Ricciardo, could out-qualify Max on a decent amount of, decent number of occasions. And they would race closely. And it was you looked at Ricciardo Verstappen in 2018 as a teammate pairing. And we're like, yeah, look, Max is the quicker guy. I think that's fair to say in 2018. But, it's not by any stretch. It's not domination. Not by any stretch. And then obviously Pierre comes in, gets 12 races. He doesn't have the benefit of doubt that Albon and then Perez did, because ultimately Gasly was following Ricciardo. Ricciardo was close to Max. Gasly came in, was nowhere near Max. So as much as it was only 12 Grand Prix at the time, it was like, okay, well, fair. Maybe Gasly's just not that guy, right? At the time, right? Yeah, Gasly's not that guy. Comes in. And then Albon comes in. And Albon did relatively speaking, a decent job, actually. End of second half of 2019 when he replaced Gasly. Who also did a really good job, second half of 2019? Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso. And then, of course, Gasly in 2020, very good in the Toro Rosso. Albon started okay. See, Austria will always cut deep. But just gradually got worse and worse and worse, which is exactly what ended up happening to Perez. 2021, Perez comes into the team. Gasly has probably his best season in Formula One. And Albon's on the sidelines. Then 2022, Perez starts kind of well, and there was a theme, wasn't there? Each season, Perez, Max would typically start a reasonable gap between the two of them, and then gradually Checo would drop off to an extent where it's untenable. And in this time, Albon returns to F1 with Williams and reinvigorates this team and performs really well against Latifi, granted, so it's hard to measure him. Gasly continues to perform well. Tsunoda's getting close to Gasly, but you can't say Gasly's driving badly. Obviously, Gasly moves to Alpine, hits the ground running, I think, does really well relative to Ocon, who'd been at that team for a long time. Albon continues to improve and develop. And again, not established teammates. So, obviously I have my belief in Alex. And Perez, again, starts well. It just disconnected. I think I'm back now. Am I back? Hello? Is anybody there? Damn, this stream has been cursed today. This is a cursed stream. Okay, we're back. Sorry. I'm really sorry, everyone. I don't know what's going on. My internet connection did actually briefly drop then. I'm wired in. I'm not on the Wi-Fi. Sorry. Anyway, it's because I'm waffling too. It's the CHINWAG, right? This is what we do, okay? I talk for ages and you sit there and judge me. So now we're in a situation, right, where obviously Lawson came in to replace Daniel and fill in for Daniel when he broke his wrist. And as much as you see stats about this is 8 times, it's 8-0 in qualifying head to head. Yuki to Liam is 8-0. Okay, that is true, but that does not tell the full story. You look at when they were teammates at Racing Bulls, V-Carb, whatever you want to call it. And the gaps were never, it was a tenth and a half, something like that. Which, given Yuki's experience, given Liam's relative lack of experience, tenth and a half, I think that's quite acceptable. And obviously Red Bull have done run-outs with Liam around Silverstone and Yuki, and they've kind of put them head-to-head, and Red Bull made a decision on Liam. From the claimed decision, of course, is that Liam shows more potential upside for the future going forward. I'm not convinced. I don't know about you lot, right? I'm really not convinced that if in an alternative universe Yuki gets the Red Bull seat, Liam stays in the Racing Bulls, I'm not convinced that Liam isn't just doing like what Hajar's doing, what Yuki's doing, getting to Q3s in the V-Carb, in the Racing Bulls, whatever you call it, and Yuki's struggling in the Red Bull. Because Albon struggled in the Red Bull, Pierre struggled in the Red Bull, Perez struggled in the Red Bull, Liam struggled in the Red Bull. And these are all drivers who have shown that they can do it. Now, I'm just not convinced. There's too much evidence. Do I think that Yuki Tsunoda would jump into that Red Bull and be within 0.3 of Max? I just don't. And that's nothing against Yuki, because Yuki's driving out of his skin in the Racing Bulls, in that car. And there's what's the quote from Max? Someone in chat. What is it? There's a quote from Max. Well, he was being interviewed after, and he gave quite the headline is like, it's like a cryptic kind of response. It's like, I don't know, like, let me try and find someone in live chat will bring up the quote. At the end of the day, it's night. That's very good, Toby. It's very wise. Would Liam be performing better in that V-Carb? Would Liam be getting into every single Q3 like Yuki's been doing? I think he probably would. Because when they were both in the same car, Liam and Yuki, as much as in qualifying, Yuki consistently had the edge. In the race, it was very, very, very similar. It was very, very similar in the race pace between Yuki and Liam last season in that car. So it's like, without the eyeballs, the scrutiny, the environment, what Red Bull were doing is not working. And it hasn't worked since 2018 when they had Ricciardo in the car. And we've got so many points of reference. We've got, right, Albon had done 6 months in F1. They chucked him in. And it kind of worked at the start and then didn't work. Gasly, before Albon, had done a year and a few races, didn't he, in 2017, didn't he? He did like a few races at the end of the year for Toro Rosso. So he'd done a year and a little bit when they chucked Gasly in. Didn't work. Perez brought someone in from the outside. Experienced F1, journeyman, right? Been at Force India for ages, done bits for that team, punched above its weight. Ultimately, did not work. It had its moments, Perez did. Yeah, it had its moments, but overall did not work, right? Was nowhere near what it should have been, anywhere consistently enough. And now Lawson's coming in, and you've got Max, consistently doing the business, being second in the championship, 2 points behind Lando Norris, and Liam's P18, P20, P20. Like, it's just, look, and I get Perez fans will feel very well. It's when, you know, the team admitted last year that Perez had been complaining for a while. We'll feel vindicated somewhat by this, by seeing another driver come in and struggle, you know, just as much, if not more than Checo. Because again, Checo had his moments where he was fantastic. Again, Baku, unbelievable. Checo was just like, who is this guy? This is not the same guy who's been... And then he would just be going out in Q1s again straight away after. Liam simply can't drive this Red Bull, so they need to swap him out with someone who fits that. But who's that person, JJ? Who is this person? Does anyone exist who can drive this Red Bull? Like, I'm not seeing... like, if they've looked at Liam doing laps, right, testing mileage at Silverstone, who is this person? You can't clone Max. You can't clone him. As much as Red Bull would love to clone, there's nothing Christian Horner wants more than a cloning machine. Max, you can't clone him, right? And I joked about this on Twitter a few days ago. I was like, honestly, make 3 racing balls and just re-livery one of them and put Liam in that, because they will get more points than the constructors, because the racing ball is actually a decent car. Just do that. Like, it's just, it's crazy, isn't it? It's actually crazy. Yos, put Yos in it. It's so weird. It's really strange, isn't it? You've now got 4. Like, it happens once and you think, maybe they just, you know, maybe Pierre wasn't up for it. Then it happens to Alex and you're like, oh, okay. Well, maybe Alex wasn't that good, but it's not looking great. Perez, oh no, like, it's happening again. And this guy's an experienced guy. This isn't some junior coming from nowhere. And then Liam's jumped in and it's like, come on, like, this is the second weekend, right? And it's been crazy conditions in Australia and it's a sprint, right? And this Red Bull's clearly a bastard to drive, right? Clearly. So that context is important, right? So I'm not getting, like, I've seen some people, we need to swap him out now. That is truly ridiculous. You need to give Liam at least half a season. Right? Because this car is clearly a outlier, right? It's clearly an outlier to extract anywhere near its performance ceiling. Because again, it's not just like Max's teammates are consistently getting beaten by Max. They're consistently getting beaten by McLarens, Ferraris, Mercedes, Aston Martins, Williamses, right? That's the problem. It's not that this car, Max is getting wins and they're just finishing on the podium, right? Always behind Max. That would be fine. It's they're finishing behind so many other people as well. So that car only seems to be able to get to its performance ceiling when it's being driven with the sensitivity, right? That analogy that Alex Albon gave on the High Performance podcast, it's the best way of understanding it, because A, it's from a driver who drove the car for a year and a half, and B, like, we all understand, like, if you switch the sensitivity up on your mouse, then it's really hard to click stuff, right? Because you always overshoot and you got to really focus and concentrate, and it's very easy to, like, misclick and all that. So as a long-time Yuki endorser, okay, a long-time investor in Yuki coin, he's a driver I really like, and I think he's got a great character. And what I like probably most about Yuki is that we've seen that development, and that's something I really warm to in drivers, right? When he came in, very rough diamond, very, very rough, but it was there somewhere, and we're seeing that now, right? And he's killing it this year. He's been unbelievable, and he should have got way more points in Australia. The team done him over. I don't want to see Yuki in that Red Bull, because I think the same thing would happen. And I don't think it's because Yuki's not a good driver, because I think he's a fantastic driver. I just think there's something about that Red Bull second seat, which, again, we've been saying this for years, right? But, like, come on, this is beyond any doubt now. There's some, like, that Red Bull organization, and I'm talking like in every aspect, okay? Or I'm open to any aspect, I guess, right? Is it the car's been engineered in a certain way? Is it that the kind of race engineering team there at the weekend is consistently pushing it in a certain direction? Like, I don't know, okay? You don't know. Only they know. Ultimately, we can only speculate. But it's just crazy. I don't want to see Yuki in that car. I don't want to see Yuki in that car because I don't think it would be any different. I really don't. I really don't think it would be any different. Because as a driver, Yuki, Pierre, Alex, Checo, right? And I know Checo had some difficult years at Red Bull, right? But look at how much he cooked in 2020. Like, Yuki, Alex, Pierre, Checo are all very, very, very good Formula One drivers. And I wouldn't put Yuki top of that pile or I wouldn't put him bottom of that pile. I think they're all very alike. So, I think it'd just be the same thing if they put Yuki in. I do. I really do. And I think with Liam, the problem for Liam, right? And obviously I did my, I've done some work with Red Bull, and I met Liam, and like Liam's like just a normal lad, right? He's just a really nice kid, great, like couldn't have had a better impression meeting him. Problem obviously for Liam is that, where he, as much as it was funny when he flipped the bird at Checo, and, not here to make friends, a few quotes that people have latched onto. And he came in very elbows out, right? I want that Red Bull seat, blah, blah, blah. And when you have that approach, and even he's said since then, there's a few things he'd do differently. Like he wouldn't flip the bird to Checo, that's for one thing. If you're going to have that approach, then if you don't deliver, which he hasn't been able to deliver anywhere near expectations, then that is going to get held against you, right? It's like when Alex said, they raced me too hard. Anytime Alex cocked up, made a mistake, that was brought out and thrown at him. No one's saying that now. Not when he's cooking Carlos in qualifying, right? No one's saying that now. But if Alex does start to mess up and start to clang it, then people will bring that one out again, right? Because that's just what happens. That's the game. So I just... Yeah, the long and the short of it is, I do think, even though you look at Hadjar has adapted brilliantly, really has, right? Bortoletto adapted brilliantly. Antonelli adapted brilliantly. Behrman, obviously, he's got some experience that he's coming back from. And Doohan's been there with Pierre in qualifying, right? The races have been messy, but there with Pierre in qualifying. Those lot have all adapted fantastically. Liam is in a different circumstance to the rest, right? You have to acknowledge that Red Bull second seat is a complete outlier, okay? Like it just is. And it's like it's difficult, crazy conditions. Australia, sprint weekend, China. It was never raced around. Suzuka next weekend is huge for Liam because this is a track he knows well. He raced there in Super Formula. He raced there. Like, we saw how well Liam did in Suzuka last year, right? Because, what was it? What was the result? Let me check. 2024 Japanese Grand Prix. Because I remember Liam and Yuki going wheel to wheel at Suzuka, right? And... Where did Liam finish? Yeah, because he qualified... Am I blind? Where's... Oh, wait, 2023. God, oh my God. What the hell? Was that 23? Oh my... That was 23! Oh, that is unacceptable. How has time gone that quickly? Was that 23 when he was side by side with Yuki on lap 1? Wow, it was as well. Jeez. Yeah, so what? Liam went out in Q2, right? and was 3/10 off of Yuki, right, in Q2. So Yuki did the business on Liam in qualifying. But in the race, Liam got ahead of Yuki, stayed ahead of Yuki. So even the biggest Lawson hater, right, or Yuki enjoyer or Perez enjoyer out there, you have to acknowledge, right, from the sample we saw last year of Yuki versus Liam in the same car, they were close. Yuki had the advantage in qualifying, as he should, as a driver with so many years' experience. But ultimately in the race, they were very close. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think putting Yuki in the car is going to make a difference. All this to me is just puts the eyeballs. And again, this is what I say. Like, Perez fans should feel somewhat vindicated in the fact that now we've got 4 drivers who have gone through this, and we're already talking about this. Like, we've not even completed the second weekend. Red Bull needs to fix up, man. Because if Zach Brown's right and Max goes to Mercedes in 26, they are completely... I'm not going to swear. They are absolutely... they're buggered. They are up a creek without a paddle, right? They are up a creek without a paddle. Lowell, my question is, what do Red Bull have to lose by swapping Liam and Yuki for now? Liam can go to Racing Bulls and rebuild his confidence, and Red Bull could actually see what Yuki could do next to Max in a Red Bull. I think the problem is, Lowell, right? Again, it's we've had crazy condition in Australia and a sprint weekend in China. We've not had enough. Liam's had a terrible start, objectively, right? No one's denying that. He would say it, anyone would say it. Liam's had a terrible start, but if you give him 12, at least, give him 12 in the Red Bull, give him a chance to find his feet, to improve, to not mess up qualifying laps, to hopefully be within 4/10 of Max like it was in their first comparable SQ1 runs, right? You'd be pulling Liam away too quickly. You'd be reacting too quickly, because I know most people wanted Tsunoda in the car, okay? I know that Liam, that's a given, right? Just look at social media, right? Most people wanted Tsunoda in the car. And did Yuki... Yes, Yuki deserved the opportunity more. Like, I don't think anyone could really argue against that. But Red Bull, again, it's not about who deserves it. This is ultimately... Look, this is ultimately... Now that we've seen this with Lawson, because the start for Liam has been worse than I thought it would be. It just comes back to, like, the only driver who isn't a rookie, who isn't experienced, who's coming from a different angle, is bringing Daniel back. Like, I'm not saying do it now, because, like, obviously Daniel's done. Daniel's done with F1. That's not happening. But I would be so interested, because I don't think Yuki would be any different. I don't think he'd be any different to Liam. He might not be finishing last, but he'd still be getting knocked out in Q1, Q2. I think that's my opinion. Like, Ricciardo would have been something different, because Red Bull know how to get the best out of Ricciardo, because they've done it in the past, because they've worked for him for years in the past. I know it's in the past, right? But it's not worked with an old timer in Perez. It's not worked with new blood in Albon, in Gasly, and in Lawson. It's not working right now. It's not working. Like, but you need to give Liam half a season, right? You do, because what you swap Yuki in for him now, and then Yuki, which is what I think would happen, he would then immediately start struggling, and he'd be going out in Q1, because it's so marginal. Alex was saying in the post race that the midfield were within like a 10th. Getting out of Q1 was just as hard as getting into Q3. So when you've got margins these fine, because not only is the midfield super close together, but the midfield is closer to the top teams as well. If you're in a car that is an absolute bastard, then it's going to catch up. I don't think Yuki would do it any better, because I think that because Yuki's not loads better than Lawson. He's not loads better than Albon. He's not loads better than Perez. He's not loads better than Gasly. And they couldn't do it. So I just don't... The best thing for Yuki is to stay in that Racing Bulls and just put himself in the shop window for a big seat next year that's not Red Bull. Like, because that Red Bull seat, they need to... They've backed themselves into a corner that works when Max is winning all the time. But when he's not, it's tough. It is tough. And I think ripping Liam out after 2 Grand Prix is... No. Redonk. Thank you, Second City Saint, as well for the super chat. And thank you, the boy. Would RB be a backmarker team if MV wasn't there? The problem is I don't know if you're talking about Racing Bulls or Red Bull when you say RB. I'm assuming you're saying Red Bull. Would they be a backmarker team if Max Verstappen wasn't there? Again... I mean, look, obviously, if you just took... If you swap Yuki with Max, right? This is crazy. This is crazy. But I think it's true. It's true. If you swap Yuki with Max right now, okay, put Max in the Racing Bulls and Yuki in the Red Bull would be one of the worst cars on the grid. And the Racing Bulls would be... I don't think Max would get them... winning Grand Prix, right? But Max and Isaac would put the Racing Bulls comfortably 5th quickest car, probably podiums, consistent point scoring finishes, big points as well. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable if you're Red Bull. How has it got to this? But isn't that true? Isn't that how it would go? Honestly, it's barbaric. Yeah, and look. Again, yeah, exactly as you say, Mac. If Max wasn't there to begin with, the car program wouldn't be so heavily focused on an individual style or an individual... Again, Max can do the high sensitivity stuff in a way that clearly is... Max is a freak. And I say that in the most complimentary way, right? He's a freak of nature. He's unbelievable. He's one of the greatest of all time without any shadow of doubt. Of course he is, right? And this just... He's so adept at extracting pace that it has... I think ultimately it's allowed Red Bull to get almost complacent on the drivability of their car because Max can drive around these problems and he can... Because he's so good, and that's crazy. That is a crazy talent to have. But he does. He just does. Thank you, Colvin, for the super chat. At this point, do you think that drivers would reject the Red Bull seat? It's clear from the trend that Red Bull is made for Max. I mean, I don't think it's a very... That Red Bull seat is nowhere near as appealing as it should be. Is it? Max is second in the championship. He's going for his 5th in a row. That should be a super appealing seat, and it just isn't. And it shouldn't be. It should be, but it can't be. And if you're talking about like Arvid Lindblad coming up, like something needs to. The good thing for Red Bull is that 2026 is on the horizon. But how do they make sure that they don't do this to themselves for the next set of regulations? Because if Max does leave, whether it's to Aston Martin or Mercedes or just retire, right? Max has said he's not going to race beyond 28. Now, obviously, if they bring V10s back, maybe that's a way of keeping him sweet and making him want to stay on. But they are completely beholden to their driver. This is the problem. It's not a problem until it is. Now, while Max is here and doing bits, that he's got a great shot at a Drivers' Championship, and no one's taking points off of him, like no teammates taking points off of him. He can consistently be up there. Max can win another Drivers' Championship, right? this whole situation does not hurt Max's ability to win a drivers' championship at all. But what it does do is hurt Red Bull's ability to win constructors, and it is dangerous because things change quickly in F1. Max could easily find himself in a Mercedes or an Aston Martin seat in the next couple of years. We know those conversations have happened and will continue to happen. And if it does, if Max goes, then who can step in and drive this current car? I don't think there's anyone on the grid who can jump in and drive this car. I don't think there is a single driver who would be able to drive this car close to Max. Sure, I think, Charles Leclerc, I think Fernando Alonso, I think probably a Lewis, I think probably maybe a George Russell. Like, these guys would get closer. But do I think they'd be close to Max? No, I don't. Max, you got to forget, Max has been in this team since 2016. 2016 he's been at this team since. So he is fully, but it's worked. It's 4 world titles. They've won most of the constructors throughout the ground effect era. And it's been closer than it should be, but ultimately that doesn't matter. If you get it done, you get it done. It doesn't matter if you win by a point or 100 points. Winning's winning. And yeah, I think it's just, this is big food for thought now. This is big food for thought. Going forward. Thank you, Culver, again. Also, the junior program of Red Bull is also not very attractive right now. Mercedes Ferrari program is way better, even Williams. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree. Obviously, they do still have racing balls. That's the thing. Red Bull still own racing balls. And the racing balls car is actually a very competitive midfield car now. Very competitive midfield car. That is as much owned by Red Bull as Red Bull Racing. It's just, I need Liam to have a good race. I need Liam, please, man. Please have a good race. And you know what, like, whatever happens tomorrow, Suzuka is huge. Suzuka is huge for Liam. Confidence-wise, I mean, I remember 2019, Alex matched Max's time in qualifying around Suzuka to the 1,000th. Max did make a mistake, but Max made a mistake and Alex didn't. And if it had been 1/1000th quicker, it wouldn't have been a clean sweep, right? And there would have been that one next to Alex's name in qualifying head-to-head against Max. Liam's got experience around Suzuka. He doesn't have that excuse. And I still, and you might call me crazy, right? And I said this last year. It's been a terrible start, a way worse start than I was expecting. I thought it'd start slow, knowing the situation, but it's been worse than I was expecting. I still think, when we're looking at this halfway into the season, I think Liam will have gotten better. And I do think he has the capacity to get within 3-4 tenths. And I say that because of the body of testing that he's done, the fact that he has been, he's on the sim a lot, the same sim that Max uses. I still believe, okay? I still believe. And look, listen, you call me crazy about saying Alex and Carlos will be close. And Alex and Carlos isn't actually that close in the other way right now. Now that will change again, right? I still believe Liam can be the right driver for this car. But this is a huge challenge for him. This is a huge challenge for him mentally. Because the pressure is on. He's getting it from Yuki fans, from Checo fans, from the broader fan base. I of course, like you got like on a human level, got to feel for him because he's a nice lad, and I still believe, and this isn't just because I filmed some stuff with Liam. Like I was saying this last year, right? Yuki may have deserved the seat, but I felt that Liam was the right choice out of the two. I think Ricardo would have been interesting as well, but you know, I think I'm happy, even though things are as low as they can be right now for Liam. I'm happy to put my flag in the sand and be like, no, I think by mid-season, and LMAO all you like, right? I think by mid-season he will have got his feet under the table and be in a stronger position, a much stronger position than he is right now. I think by mid-season he'll be a consistent Q3 driver. I really do. I really do. It's been such a crazy start to the year. If this season, right, had started with Australia, no rain, and then China, no sprint, right, and we are where we are now, I would be more concerned. But we haven't. We had an insane Grand Prix in Australia, and it's a sprint weekend around a track he's never raced at before. So that's where the benefit of doubt is there, okay? But let's see, shall we? Time will tell. Anyway, right. I've said my piece. We're going to be talking tomorrow after the race. So thank you all for joining me here live on YouTube. Appreciate you all taking it. Sorry for the lag. Hopefully I can sort it out. I'm not really sure why it's doing it. Again, everything seems to have been fine on my end, apart from that one little drop in my internet. It seems to have been fine on the back end of the stream. So yeah, I'm really not sure. If anyone's got any suggestions, get in touch, send me a tweet or something, because yeah, I've tried changing things. I think it's better, but then we've got more blue. Actually, yeah, tell you what, we've been here long enough. I'll see if Minton wants to come. Minton, go. Minton. Shall I? You know what? Well, I will get him a treat. Okay, so I'll say the word. Minton, treat. Here he comes. Come in here. Come on. There we go. Oh yeah, rolls onto his back. Here he is. Vincent's scammed. You just got scammed, buddy. No, don't worry. I will. I promise. I will get him a treat directly after this, okay? Because I did promise him a treat. Here he is. Here's Minton. He's been You're very warm, very, very warm, which means he's been in bed, a kip. He was not impressed when I set my alarm at 3:30 to watch the sprint, or 3, whatever it was. Were you? You were not interested. You were not interested. Oh, breath's a bit stinky. You have to brush your teeth. The little things where you like put them in his gums and it kind of cleans the. That says you've got good teeth, so it's in a good place. Look at the way he's like. I think it's because of the light. That's why he gets a bit like with his eyes. He's like, what's going on? Right, do you want to go on the shoulder? You're a bit of a dead weight at the minute. You've definitely woken up from a deep sleep. But when the word treat gets dropped, then he wakes up for anything and everything. Right, he is still sleepy. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you tomorrow for the post-race CHINWAG for the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.